2004 Mazda 3. Front hub bearing, or wheel bearing, as you call it. I don't know if this one's bad. Let's see. Can you see it? Let's see if you can see it. Okay, mine's bad. Support your vehicle, put jack stands under it. If you don't have an impact, you want to lower it back down to the ground, break the lug nuts loose, jack it up to support it, remove the left front tire. And then remove your caliper and your caliper bracket and your rotor. That's what I'm going to do. Okay, I got my tire off. It's a 21 millimeter for the lug nuts. And then I want to take off my tie rod end so I can turn the wheel back and forth, the steering back and forth without having to push this rack and pinion in. And that is remove the cotter pin from the castle nut. And the castle nut is a 14 millimeter. I'll tell you what, put some penetrant on, let it soak for a while. Because if you just hit it with an impact or break it loose, break the dang stud off. So now I gotta buy a tie rod end. Alright, so then you want to break the taper. Hit the knuckle really hard with a nice 2 pound, 2.5 pound, 3 pound sledge. That breaks the taper loose. But before you do that, you want to break this. Since I broke the stud off, the threads off, you want to break the nut loose on there. And those are usually a 22. So now I got to replace the tie rod end. Okay, I'm gonna remove the caliper now. I removed the caliper brackets. I didn't take the caliper off the bracket. I took the whole bracket off. These are 17s, 2 of them on the back side. Take those out and then get your decent sized screwdriver. And you want to kind of like get in here into the slats and push your caliper over a little bit to help push the piston in. And then you can come in here and put the screwdriver in there. And pry the whole thing assembly off. Kind of get it in there. Get it in there. Pry the caliper off. And hold on to it with your other hand and catch it. Okay. Okay, you take your caliper and bracket off. Take your rotor off. If it's stuck on there, hit the rotor in between here, or on here, in between the studs. To knock it loose, get it loose and put it aside. You want to get some lubricant, some penetrant. Put it on your sensor. Put it around the base of your strut bolt, your ball joint bolt and nut, and your ball joint stud down inside there. So that'll help it come apart easier, because I want to take this whole knuckle off of here, and haven't done one of these yet. And then there's a bolt in here, so you want to take that off also. And then you want to take off your sensor, ABS sensor connector, push it in. You'll feel it kind of like snap, and then you'll pull it up. Okay. I don't know if it destroyed this. I don't recall if the light was on. Alright. The bottom strut bolt is a 17 millimeter. It threads into the knuckle on the other side. Make sure you put some penetrant on it, let it soak a little bit. Mine came out, no problem. And then you want to take out the lower ball joint nut that was on the back side. Take the nut off. If the bolt spins, put your 13 millimeter wrench on it and take it off. And then when you get it off, the nut off, put your 13mm socket on it, impact or whatever, and give it a whirl on. And if it don't come all the way out and you have a hard time pulling it out, put your 13mm wrench behind it, open it, and put your impact on it and pull it out with the gun, using the gun and the wrench at the same time, and it will unthread itself right out. And then the center bolt, that was a 13 head also. So now what we'll do is put some more penetration on the top knuckle, and then I'll put some more penetration on the ball joint, and I'll turn the knuckle more, you know, towards the front of the car, so I can get a screwdriver in here and pound it into the slit in the knuckle where the ball joint goes to open it up, so I can pull the ball joint off. Okay. Don't forget to spray some penetration inside here for your splines. And if you got a brass rod, stick it in there and hit it with a hammer so you can see if the CV joint comes out of the hub. And if it's loose, then you're good to go. Don't ever just stick a metal bar in there or a long punch. You'll end up messing the threads up and into the CV shaft. See, my pry bar, got the curved end on it, and on the end of it, I can hit it with a hammer. And I'll use that to get into the ball joint, because the curve is nice because you can't get a straight shot at it. So you stick it in there, you hit it with your hammer, hit it in there till it bottoms out, and then I'm going to put some more penetration on it before I pull it out. And then tap on the lower control arm a little bit with your hammer and see if the ball joint moves any. And if it moves, then you can pry the control arm down and tap the control arm with a hammer to finish pulling the ball joint out. You don't want to be pulling the ball joint out of the lower control arm if it's stuck in there too much with the ball joint into the knuckle. So be careful. I'm going to put your pry bar into the lower control arm. There's a hole up there by the bushing. As you're prying down on the control arm, you want to tap on the control arm with your hammer. Don't be slamming on it, just tap on it. And as you're tapping on it, the ball joint should work its way out of the knuckle. And when it works its way out of the knuckle, then you pull the whole knuckle assembly off to the side, and then you want to grab a hold of the knuckle and pull out. And as you're pulling out on it, you want to pull the CV shaft out of your hub. Sometimes you might have to tap on it with your brass drift and a hammer. And once you get it out, then you can take your hammer and support your knuckle and tap on the top of the knuckle while you're pulling it out a little bit, and you'll pound the knuckle off of the strut. And make sure you lube this up again before you start pounding on it a little bit. Okay? And mine came out pretty good. I'm going to pull on the knuckle and tap on the top with your hammer. And I'm thinking hit my total withdrawal button, total button. So we're going to scratch that part, hopefully. There's the knuckle. And the sensor's in there. And it's been rubbing, so hopefully the sensor's good. But I'll put some more penetration on it. So my whole thing is totally bad. Okay. Okay, I got a nice pipe. I can put my whole knuckle on, and I can press it. And then I got a spacer pushing on my knuckle. Not my knuckle, but my hub. I got my press in there. See how it comes out. I was wondering about this one because the bearing comes on the hub. So I must not have to remove the hub and then remove the bearing from the other side with removing the snap ring first. So, I guess we're good, huh? Yeah, that pipe, if the hubs, they fit right inside the pipe perfectly. I use it on all my Ford Explorers and everything. Handy. So, we'll get it apart. And hopefully it misses that. There it is. Okay. No room in any of my spots. Okay. Okay. Sensor don't look too bad. Has a little bit of wear on it, but I don't see it actually going through the plastic too much. I don't see any metal or anything. But right now is the best time to replace it if you're going to replace it. Because you can get inside of it and punch it out. Or if it breaks, then you can drill it out, but hopefully the dumb Torx bit bolt comes out. Okay? So now what I'm going to do, I'll clean this up and I'll put some anti-seize in there. I love anti-seize. Here's your old bearing. Here's the new bearing. And here's your trim ring. Here's your old one. You can see it been rubbing all the way around. Okay. When you press this in, you don't want to press it up against the studs. So what you want to do is get a spacer, an old bearing, old wheel bearing. Fits right on there. I'll press up against that. That way I'm not pressing against my studs. Whether I'm pressing the knuckle onto here or this onto the knuckle. I think I'm going to be doing, I'll figure that out in a minute. Okay. If you got one of those kits for doing front wheel drive hub bearings, that's great. They have all a bunch of little pieces. I do have one, but I don't feel like getting it out. So I found out I got an old pinion bearing race. Fits right in there perfect. And then I'll stick this over it. I'll use my press against that. And I'll press the whole thing down onto this, onto the bearing and hub. And I have my spacer from my other bearing protecting my studs. So I'll get that all set up. Okay, I got mine all set up. It's sitting on there. Bearing, race, hub, new bearing, knuckle, my spacer bearing, and my flat. Make sure it's centered. Make sure you look at it as you're pressing down. Make sure it's going good. If it's going crooked, it makes it a little bit harder. So I release the pressure and get it centered. Mine is doing pretty good. It'll go in nice and smooth, you know. Yep. Push it down in there and until it stops. Hear it? Stopped. Ah! Get a little extra umphy. And we're good. And I'll take it off. Here it is. Here's my sensor. Make sure you spin it, turn it, make sure it's not kinked or binding. You can go together. Wipe out your struts, strut housing area. Put some anti-seize in there. Put some anti-seize on your ball joint. Put some anti-seize on your bolts and your bolts. Okay. And I still gotta go get a tie rod in. Ruins my day. Okay. Don't forget to put some anti-seize on your splines. So what I'll do sometimes I'll pull the strut out and I'll put a 2x4 behind it so I can get my knuckle started onto my strut. On the back side of the strut there's a little tab sticking out, and that goes into the slot in the knuckle, that, you know, the part that squeezes onto the strut. So you'll get it started and then you'll tap on the lower part of the knuckle and you pound the knuckle up until it gets to the spot where you see the line on your strut where it was. When you get it close, you want to look through your bolt hole, make sure there's nothing in the way, because sometimes you'll bend this tab on the back side and you'll bend it and it blocks the hole. So make sure you get that going up straight. You get your bolt in there and then you'll tap on the knuckle to go up and it'll fall into place, and then you can hand thread it for a little bit, and then you want to tighten it up with your ratchet and torque it down where your impact. Okay, you got your upper strut bolt tight. That's a 17. Put your pry bar back in your hole in your lower control arm. Pry down the control arm. Push your knuckle above the ball joint and release some pressure. Now it's just sitting there. Okay, it's just sitting on there, and then you want to start your CV shaft into your hub. Just get it started, you know, and then once you got it started into the splines, you can put your ball joint into your knuckle. Okay, to get my ball joint into my knuckle, I just put this bolt in there, thread it a little bit just so my splines go in straight. And what I did was, since it's right over the hole, the ball joint over the hole with the knuckle, put my hand on both sides and I pushed the whole knuckle in like that, and then the ball joint was lined up with the hole and went right in there, and I tapped on the ball joint on the bottom to the hole lined up from my bolt, and then I put my bolt in, and then I want to tighten it up. Tighten that one up. Remember, you don't forget you got a nut that goes on it. You tighten that one up. Probably like 35 foot-pounds. I'm pretty sure this bolt here is like 30 foot-pounds, 25 to 30. And once we got those two done, then we'll put our brakes back together. And don't forget to plug your ABS sensor in. Okay, I put a little bit of anti-seize on your hub. That keeps it from rusting. Helps keep it from bonding together. Got my connector plugged in because once I get the rotor on, it's kind of hard to get to it. And I'm not replacing the brakes or anything, so, but you got to make sure that this surface is clean and not no big chunks of rust sitting in it. Because if they've got chunks of rust in there, then it's going to cause the rotor to pulsate. Put your caliper and bracket on. 2 bolts. Those are 17 millimeter bolts. There's 2 of them. Tighten those up. Those are like 55 foot-pounds, 50 foot-pounds. Don't forget to tighten them up. And then put your tie rod on. Mine broke, but put yours on. Put your castle nut on, tighten it up, snug it up. Put your cotter pin back in there. Cotter pin. And then put your tire on. I think they're like 85, 80 foot-pounds for the tire. You should look it up, your specs yourself on everything, double check. And that's the hub bearing. Thank you.